Call the Brainerd School Board meeting to order. This is the date, October 10th at 6 p.m. And we'll start with roll call.
Charles Blacklands.
Here.
Kevin Boyles.
Here.
Tom Hagelin.
Here.
Ruth Nelson.
Here.
Bob Nystrom. Sarah Spear.
Here.
5 of the 6 present.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just a brief announcement that this meeting is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota statutes and that you may monitor this meeting from a remote location by watching on YouTube Live. And it is being recorded and access is available to that recording. So we have a bunch of amendments to the agenda that I'll read over before I ask for a motion. Mr. Owen's name was misspelled, and so we corrected that. Sorry, Mr. Owen. The tennis information was updated to include the next section meet. The time was corrected for an October 18th speaking engagement with Kiwanis that Dr. Hahn will be speaking at. An additional speaking engagement was added. The equity task force meeting date was added. And also the school board candidate speaking order was modified. Originally, we had the incumbent slated to go last, but adjusted that to reflect alphabetical order, which is what we did for the two-year candidates from the last meeting. So I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So move. Second.
First from Director Boyles, a second from Director Hagelin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. And we will go into the presentations for school board candidates. And first we have the two-year seats. But before I start that, I want to just, for both these presentations and for our public input section, I want to just make sure that everyone realizes that since we have a full board, the expectations. We enforce a 3-minute limit on each person, and community members and candidates should not make complaints or allegations against students or employees and not discuss any data on students. If there's any interest in this, you should follow policy 206 and submit the complaint or allegations in writing to Superintendent Hahn. This 3-minute public comment period is for public comment only, and there'll be no verbal interaction with the board or the superintendent. So with that being said, we'll start with the two-year candidate that couldn't make it last month, Brent Yannick. Welcome, Brent.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for your time tonight, and thank you to all that are here and watching either live or when they can. I appreciate your interest in the school board candidacy. My name is Brent Yannick, and I am running for one of the two-year school board positions. I was born and raised in Brainerd and have been happily married to Heather for 16 years now, who is also a Brainerd graduate. We have 2 children, Ella, who is a sophomore at BHS, and Livy, who is an 8th grader at Forest View. I missed the last school board meeting where the rest of the two-year candidates gave their introduction as we were on a family vacation, and I appreciate the chance to speak tonight. As for me, after high school, I went to Wadena Technical College to become an electrician. I currently work at Brainerd Public Utilities as an electrician, and I also teach an electrical apprenticeship night school program for local 242, the IBW local 242 at Central Lakes College. Also, I am a volunteer firefighter for the city of Garrison. As for why I am choosing to run is to become a school board member is to be more involved in the community and to represent the community, business owners, the parents, and most of all, the students, with transparency from input and feedback that I receive, to build trust between the community and the school board with the why decisions are made, to be the voice of the community on the issues we face moving forward, to challenge everyone in the community to continue to be involved in the process as time goes on by reaching out to board members so that everyone on the board is hearing what the community has to say. The students need to be the main focus in all decisions the school board makes. The overall goal of a public school should be to help students become prepared for life after high school with the opportunity and experience that they gain along the way through the education process. No one person has all the answers, but together, with hard work, honesty, involvement, and support, the Brainerd School District will be the best school district for Brainerd, and that is what I want for my kids. Thank you, and thank you all for coming and listening.
Next up, we'll start with school board candidate Charles Blacklands.
Hello, my name is Charles Blacklands. I'm a Christ follower. I have been married to my wife, Catherine, for 17 years. She and I have 3 kids, 15, 13, and 11 years of age. I work at Central Lakes College as the director of TRIO programs. I'm a current school board member. I'm an effective communicator. I have strong communication skills, and I have demonstrated the ability to listen to others while researching information and making educated decisions. I have also demonstrated the ability to ask difficult questions. I am a visible and active school board member. I participate in weekly school district activities and events throughout the year. I have coached sports within our school district and community for 12 years. In fact, I continue to coach youth in our community today. This fall, for example, I coach girls basketball. Local businesses is a particular passion of mine. I currently serve as the board president of the Cass County Economic Development Corporation. My accomplishments as a school board member: I have successfully advocated for fiscal responsibility and strong educational value for our taxpayers. I have successfully advocated to remove health and dental benefits for all ISD 181 school board members. This was a $25,000 expense per year per board member for our school district. Increased fiscal transparency and planning. During my tenure as a school board member, the level of discussion in fiscal matters have increased during the regular public school board meetings. I have met with multiple parent groups in an effort to hear their concerns and understand their concerns as well. I have remained accessible by phone, email, but also face-to-face meetings. As a school board, we have provided oversight of improved school entrance security throughout the school district. I have also successfully advocated for student mental health needs to be consistently part of the board discussions and decisions. My goals: continue to increase fiscal transparency, effective financial planning, and educated decision-making. Strengthen the ability to implement a fiscally responsible approach to providing mental health support services and prevention programs throughout the school district. Strengthen school district's ability to meet educational needs for all students. Define clear strategies for continuous district improvement, professional development, quality instruction, and high student achievement. Increase ISD 181 student enrollment as well. Finally, increase preparation for skilled workers to be able to find jobs in our area. I would appreciate the opportunity to serve for another 4 years as part of the Brainerd School Board. Thank you.
Next up, DJ Donlinger.
Well, hi there. I'm DJ Donlinger. I'm a product of Brainerd. Grew up here. Graduated from high school here, as did my wife, Chris, as did our children and all of our parents. Brainerd schools have been a big part of my life. And I think it's important that they continue to be. I own the Chevy dealership in town, Abra Auto Body. We got North Point Aviation out at the airport. We're teaching some kids how to fly, doing some things around Brainerd. I think I'm a Brainerd guy. Why I'm running, I think we need to get back to basics. I think that, Brainerd needs to put out independent, critical thinkers. We don't have mines. We don't have factories. We don't have places for people just to get good jobs. I think there are good jobs here, but I think you need to be pretty sharp. And I think that, you know, I'm not saying that it's Brainerd so much, but like, for example, Minnesota, 40% of our budget goes to education, and 35.5% of 11th graders can do 11th grade math. Just under 40% can read at 11th grade level. I appreciate what you guys have done. I'm sure you're trying as hard as you can, but I think that maybe we need some fresh blood, and a couple of you guys are bowing out, and I think I'd be good on the board. My business background, I think, would help with the financial side of it. I'm used to big budgets. I have a couple hundred employees, and I have the time now at this age and the interest, and I think I would be a good addition to the board, and I hope you'll give me the chance. So thank you. Thanks for what you do, and have a great day.
Next up, Randy Heidman.
This is what bad back surgery does. Chair Nelson and board members, thank you for tonight's opportunity. My name is Randy Heidman. I moved to Brainerd in 1977, and I finally retired this year. I was an adult educator for approximately 20 years or more. I currently hold a state of Minnesota short call substitute teacher license. My family, Lorna, Zachary, and Taylor all went to school in Brainerd, and they all participated in curricular activities, which I heavily support. I mentored confirmation students at Lord of Life Lutheran Church. I coached many Little League baseball teams in the area. My hobbies include golfing, not very good, but I enjoy it, camping, fishing, and I'm a fair weather snowmobiler. Everyone must leave their politics at the front door. We don't have the time, the resources, or money to engineer social issues. Parents, they are the new special, interested group. They want to be heard. We need to consider what they have to say. Consider doing periodic surveys. They want their children educated, to enjoy themselves with their friends and feel safe. The Equity Task Force report on student safety indicated most of the problems occur in hallways, lunchrooms, bathrooms, and buses. Folks, these problems have been around since I was in elementary school. So my question is, what have we been doing? District communication policies must be reviewed. Incomplete communication leads to distrust. Many parents are not notified when certain incidents are happening. School culture must change, and this is a top-down issue. Everyone must be held accountable. I've seen pictures this school year of blatant violations of the dress code. Per district policy, these students need to be sent home and their parents notified. If this is not being enforced, nothing's going to change. Equity issues. Every student is different in terms of drive, determination, and willpower to succeed. So can someone please explain to me how equal outcomes can be achieved? Lowering standards is not a solution. Let's get back to our main reason, to educate students. Let's increase student achievements. That's something we can control. Understand what all students need and then provide the tools necessary. Success will vary from student to student. Discipline. Teachers need to be respected, and this needs to be restored through strict discipline measures. Stories I've heard from teachers will make your hair stand up. My time is just about up, so in closing, being a school board member in today's world will not be easy. I have the time. I like being challenged. I believe Superintendent Hahn likes being challenged as well. I believe in a pro-education balanced budget. I will listen to teachers, parents, and other stakeholders. I will bring these concerns to the board, and I'll work with Superintendent Hahn and other board members with common sense solutions. In the end, the school board reports, in the end, the superintendent must uphold the decisions of the school board. I want to thank all you current board members. I especially want to express my sincere gratitude to Ruth and Tom for all the years that you guys have served on the school board. your retirement this year. Enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Elisa Cortentayer, which I don't think I said that correctly, I'm sorry. Cortentayer.
Hi, I'm Elisa Correntayer, and it has been a pleasure to get to know some of you over the last couple of months. Many of you already know my story. I moved from New York City to New York Mills, Minnesota in 2007. And Brainerd became my closest metropolitan area, so I spent a lot of time here. And I have a niece and nephew that attended Brainerd Public Schools, graduated from here, and I would hear their stories of what an amazing place it was. And in the back of my mind, I thought to myself, this is where I'd love to send my kids if I ever have any. Fast forward, I have some kids, and then there's a pandemic, and my husband and I decide we're gonna find the perfect hometown. So we get in an RV and we drive 20,000 miles through 25 states, only to discover that if we'd only driven an hour east, we would have found the perfect place to live. And so in spring of 2021, we committed to move to Brainerd. Last year, I volunteered every Thursday morning in Mrs. Schrader-Stave's first grade classroom and fell in love with all of the students and decided that I wanted to be part of this school system, helping it out as best I can. Next week, I start volunteering every week in Mrs. Bender's second grade classroom, and I'm going to get trained to teach the Great Books program to our elementary advanced readers. So I believe in public schools. I'm a product of public schools. Public schools allowed me to go to Yale University and to get a master's degree in international development from the London School of Economics. I bring a broad array of skills to this community from a wide range of career experiences, including professional facilitator, project manager, investment banker, nonprofit leader. And currently I am an author and singer-songwriter. And I've also been on the Minnesota State Arts Board teaching artist roster, which has brought me to teach my artistic skills to public schools all across the state. The commitment I make to you and this community is that if I am elected to the board, I will be in the schools every week, rotating the schools so that I'm in all the schools across the district. I will be out in the community at public events, answering questions and being a witness for the community of what's happening in the schools. I'm also going to help parents navigate the resources that the public school system offers them. My other interest, of course, is the arts, and I was on the board of the New York Mills Regional Cultural Center, a rural performing arts center, for 10 years. And so I'm very interested in the process of how we're going to maximize the impact of the Performing Arts Center for the community and the schools, and would love to be involved in that. Because I'm a parent of a kindergartner and a second grader, I'm going to be around for the next 13 years, and I'm looking forward to finding out how I can best serve this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Derek Owen.
Good evening. Thank you guys again so much for this opportunity to speak today. And I do want to start by thanking all of you for your service on this board, and also especially to Director Hagelin and Director Nelson. Thank you both so much for your years of service. We've never had so many eyes on the school board, right? As we can tell from this room and things that have happened lately. And I'm really excited for this opportunity. I also want to say that because of the times that we're dealing with, it is very important to our voters to make sure that they're educated and do their homework on each and every one of us to make sure that you have an opportunity right now to essentially put in 5 new board members and the direction that you want this school to go. So. Again, Derek Owen. I am a product of Brainerd, graduated in 1998. Very proud graduate of Brainerd. Went to Central Lakes College for 2 years and then on to Bemidji State University, where I have a degree in mass communications with a focus in public relations and advertising. I met my wife in college. We've been married 19 years. She is a teacher at the high school. She is also a coach in our district. We have 2 kids. My son, Eli, is a senior, and my daughter, Ruthie, is in 7th grade. I currently am a coach as well. I coach freshman football. Wish our record was better right now, but we're making it. And also a sophomore baseball coach as well. So that's really what inspired me to run for this board, is my wife and also just those kids that I had the opportunity to coach along the way. I get to see the impact that my wife has in the classroom with her students, the positive impact, and same with coaching. It's a very fulfilling and rewarding experience, and what better way to bring that to the masses than be on the school board and give the best opportunity opportunity I can for our students in our district. Again, I'm very proud to be a graduate of Brainerd. I don't think in the last few years we've maybe stepped away from that pride piece, and I really want to bring that pride back. I want our students to be proud to graduate from Brainerd, wherever that takes them after school, that we are giving them the opportunity to go to a 4-year school, a 2-year school, technical, or right into the job force, right? I think we have a huge asset in our district, and that is our teachers. And we need to support them, need to give them the opportunities to make themselves better, and ultimately, bring that down to the student level. And part of that is discipline. I think we've gone off track a little bit in our disciplinary actions. I think our teachers need to take back their classrooms, be confident that everyone in this room and all of our administration has their back and that we're supporting them is a very important thing to me as well. A bigger issue that is maybe a harder one to point on is unification. I think it'd be great if we were all just going in the same direction, right? It's a great big ship. Hopefully we're going the right way, but some people are paddling against us at times. And unifying our district comes down to communication, making sure that we're all on the same page. They're taking the direction from the board, from our superintendent to our principals, that we're all on board with the Warrior Way. I hope a lot of people are familiar with the Warrior Way. It is a big piece that's been instilled in me here in Brainerd, and I want to bring that back to our district, to you guys on the board, to our administration, all the way down to our students, so that they do have that sense of pride in knowing what a Warrior is all about. So I'd appreciate the opportunity to serve on this board, and thank you guys so much again for your time.
Thank you. Lowell Smith.
Hi, y'all.
Hi.
First, as everybody else, thank you. And just so this doesn't seem weird, since we have 2 people that are also be speaking, I'm going to talk why I'm a good fit for the 4-year position that is open. Makes it easier. So my name is Lowell Smith. I've been living in this district with my wife for over 20 years. My youngest daughter started off in pre-K here and graduated from Brainerd High School. She went to St. Cloud State after that, graduated there, and because of the school district and the education that she got here, she's in charge of marketing for a suburb called Chandler outside the city of Phoenix, Arizona. I also have my oldest daughter that's behind me, that she's coming to babysit me to be sure I don't stick my foot in my mouth. But I have multiple grandchildren, including one that's on the way with Debs. So I will be in the district for a long time. My skill set that I will bring to the board, first and foremost, is that I will be a colleague of yours. We may have policy disagreements, and that's quite okay, but it's that we come to what's best for the interest of our children, especially when they get to be an academic success. That's what we need to focus on as our school board. I have been in my job profession for 42 years. I started off my career as a paid firefighter paramedic in a city outside of Fort Worth called Alton City. For some reason, I left there and went to the city of Arlington, Texas as a paid police officer. Left there and went for the state of North Dakota Attorney General's office as a drug enforcement unit. So yes, I bought and sold drugs, so that's not something bad. After that, decided that I was going to back and finish my career off as a paramedic because that's where I best see my skill set. Currently, I am a paramedic program director and also tenured faculty at St. Cloud Tech and Community College. I have a master's degree from Bemidji State University, and I'm finishing my doctorate in educational leadership from Morehead State University, Minnesota State University, Morehead. I think that the reason really why I'm running is that I think over the last few years, the board's become mired in political politics, and I am not a politician. I want to do what's best for our children, all of them. I want to focus on parents' rights. That study, validated, peer-reviewed, show that when parents are partners in their education, their school scores do go up. And I want to ensure that we have true parent partners. We want to listen to their concerns, take what they need to say, and then adapt as we need to. I want to increase our transparency and communication that we have. Nobody's perfect. We all don't have the answers, but I think together as a community that we can all pull together and get transparency out there. As somebody prior to me said, not just why we did something or not what we did, but why we're doing it. And if it's a legality thing, the law that's attached to it, so that they know that we're not just being arbitrary. Again, what I want to say is that transparency, parents, and academic success are my core values. Also, school safety. I have a good background in that, and as I promised Derek, I was not going to let him be the only one that ever got beeped. Thank all of you for your service. I know this is time-consuming, and thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Sarah Spear.
Well, thank you for this opportunity tonight. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and being part of this. And, you know, I think about when I first started in this position last year about this time, and I had an idea of what this might be. I'd served on boards and committees before, and I've been thinking about if I had to put a job description together for this role, for sure, it would be a commitment to governance and steering strategic direction and policies, as well as additional committee work and being present for district events, engaging in community. I think all of those are really important. And I don't want to diminish the tactical description of this role. And if I had to draft a profile of a successful candidate, I would include a few characteristics that have been modeled here on this board for me that I think are really valuable. Number one, relentless support and cheerleading for public education. And I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but someone here for the celebrations and for the challenges. This is not a political position. There is one shared agenda in this room and one team fighting for the success of our students and our staff. And that doesn't mean always agreeing, but it means fighting for the highest good of our students. Number two, someone ready to study all aspects of an issue with critical eye and come to the table ready to listen and ready to change their mind and not afraid to compromise and collaborate. I think those things are important. And so to that end, a little bit about myself. I've lived in the community for 20 years, and I'm raising my family in this school system and volunteering and investing and engaging in boards and activities that build community here. I'm invested here. I was a third-generation English teacher. I have 3 degrees, including a master's in business administration. I am a lifelong learner. I have experience and training in budgeting and policy and strategic planning. And while I come with ideas and opinions, I also value the experiences and the backgrounds and the expertise around this table because they're different than mine. And because I know they represent our community and we need everyone at this table. So the 3 things that I'm really focused on in this next year are opportunities for our students. We have some incredible opportunities, more than most districts 3 times our size. And we still need to solve problems together and keep striving. Partnership with the community. This is our school district. We celebrate together. We solve problems together. We take on our challenges together. And fiscal challenges and opportunities. And I know strategic planning is going to help us prioritize where we want to invest, and that's work that we're all anxious to do. Thanks for your time tonight. I would be honored to serve with this group again for another 4 years.
Perfect timing. Thank you. Thank you all. What a great selection of candidates we have. And thank you for taking the time to be here tonight. Now we'll go on with our data summary and results from the satisfaction survey. And this, I think, is Sammy Cross and Stephanie Silgard.
Silliard.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. We're first timers. Does the PowerPoint come up for us, or do I need to bring my computer out?
Sammy.
First timers are supposed to bring donuts.
Sprinkles preferably.
Rain check.
You get a free pass this time.
I will, free pass, I'll take it. Next time, I will bring donuts. That happened at a work meeting the other day, and I brought donuts.
I don't know where it went.
Well, as Janet's loading up the presentation, we'd like to welcome Sammy Cross and Stephanie Silliard from Northern Pines Mental Health Center. Our goal this evening is to have them just give an overview. They do quarterly data with our students and families and staff regarding how our students are engaging. So they're going to give us an overview of services, what those survey results are telling us right now. And in addition, they're going to talk about what are the needs that they're seeing identified in our current student population.
Oh, there we go.
All right, we can get started as the slideshow comes up. So I'm Sammy, I'm a licensed therapist.
And I'm Stephanie, and I'm an LICSW.
We're the co-directors of the Children and Families Program, so we oversee the school-based mental health services and then our in-home program as well. The services that we provide in your school district. Thank you.
There you go.
All right. So the services that we provide in your school are therapy, and that's in the form of individual and group most commonly, and then occasional family services as needed. Those typically take place after school hours. We also provide individual and group skills, and again, the family skills that can take place after school. We're available for crisis intervention and response, and that can take a few different forms. So if we have a child who is feeling suicidal and they communicate with their school counselor, as long as we have parent consent, we can talk with that child and assess them, see if they need to go to the emergency department, see if we can safety plan with them, follow up with the parents, and then make a plan for them to go back home. And then the response piece is we have responded to multiple different incidents that have happened in the Brainerd District. The passing of Ms. Swanson last year, we were on site to provide care to the students, the teachers, whoever was in need. And then there's other prior examples, but that's just the most relevant and recent one. We are also available to provide consultation with teachers and administrators. So if they're having a situation that's occurring in their classroom and they want some feedback on how they can intervene with a specific child or kind of a trend they're seeing in their classroom, we're available to talk with them and give them ideas. We can also do classroom observations. So we can see, see with our own eyes what's happening in the classroom and then offer feedback based on that. And then lastly, as part of the contract, we're able to provide mental health training to your teachers and administrators. So we've provided QPR training, which is question, persuade, and refer. And that's kind of like a very baseline assessing children for suicide ideation and then figuring out what steps do I take. We also can provide trainings just on pretty much anything the school would be looking for. We have Holly Matthew as our trainer, and she will build a custom training to the needs of the schools, and she's done that multiple times in many of our districts. So it's a really cool opportunity.
And then it can also count towards the continuing education credits that are needed for licensing. So that's been a beneficial piece that our partners have found.
All right. I just wanted to touch on additional services that we have available for children. So what I shared with you, we can provide in the schools, but we also can make referrals to our case management team, psychiatry, and our in-home program, which we also oversee. And then you may have heard of Youth Act or Youth Assertive Community Treatment. That's a more intensive service. So the kids that would be referred to the Youth Act program would have higher intensity. They typically would have 1 to 2 suicide attempts or residential placements to qualify for that program. They also have to have MA insurance. And this program works to see the child 3 to 4 times a week, and they have their own team with therapists and LADC who can assess for chemical dependency, a peer, so someone who's had their own mental health struggles and has gone through a training to kind of do that one-to-one relatable service to them, and then also skills workers. And typically the skills workers are trained in helping kids get connected to work, help them get their driver's license. We're seeing more homelessness, so getting them connected to housing. So they're one of 2 programs in the state of Minnesota, and we have it right here in our service area. So a really great program.
So just a little bit about how to access our services. Our main referral funding source is to funnel it all in one area is through our website, so www.mpmh.org. And clicking on the child referral in the upper right corner, what that does is it goes to a general intake mailbox, and then it gets dispersed that way based on county and school. And so referrals can come really from anybody, Crow Wing County, hospitals, MCO, which is Mobile Crisis Outreach, parents, teachers, etc. And so we have seen an uptick in more referrals coming from parent referrals and partnership with like Essentia, where in the past they did come, through the social worker or the counselor or maybe a teacher. We've had a variety of referrals coming in, especially since post-COVID.
In the last school year, we served 518 students in the Brainerd District. And right now, well, I would say this was probably 2 weeks ago when I pulled this. We were serving 302 students. I'm almost definite that it is higher than that at this point. So September referrals kind of trickle in, but October is really when the honeymoon is over and we see a lot more kids needing mental health services. So October and November tend to be high in referrals, and then again in February and March. So as of our last data, 302 active students. We also have 29 staff that see these students, so 29 staff spread between the Brainerd schools. Our satisfaction surveys, as you can see, are overall very positive. We feel very welcomed and supported in our schools. We have longstanding relationships, and so we get really good feedback. The students, we had 95% positive or neutral responses, and the neutral responses are kind of like, I don't know. And so then we kind of include that in like, it's not bad then. And then school administrators and teachers, we got 95.6 positive or neutral responses, and caregivers gave 98% positive or neutral responses. The common feedback that we get is, on the negative side is more, they would like more communication. Some people will make a referral and then they will comment, we don't know what happens after the referral is made. Some of that may be intentional to protect the child's privacy. I've met with families, I met with one today who did not want almost any of the releases signed, so then I'm bound by privacy to not share that. So there are times when a referral may be made and you won't know what happens after that, but I could be serving them privately. And then we also get comments of staff unaware of services or families unaware of the services. And typically that comes from newer staff. We don't always get to the welcome back time in August to introduce ourselves and our services, so sometimes people are unaware of us being in the building. I reached out to my team leads at each of the sites to kind of hear their feedback on what they're seeing for current mental health trends. They're seeing a lot more anxiety than they have in the past year, and they categorize this by not just generalized anxiety, which we've seen trending up in general. It's a lot more social anxiety, where kids are feeling anxious being in social situations or trying to make friends, and separation anxiety, so separation from their parents. We're seeing an increase in depression. We're seeing a lot more trauma, school refusal and avoidance, increase in suicidal ideation and self-injury, and then seeing a lot of family stressors that are impacting students in a difficult way. So as you can see, families that have low income, lack of transportation, where there's abuse and neglect in the home, a lack of parent involvement, and I'm sure with inflation, you know, money being tighter is making things that much harder as well. And then these are a few things that we have in development that I'm really excited about. We have our first group that is going to be doing CBITS training, so that's cognitive behavioral intervention for trauma in schools. In the past, we've only been able to be a part of trauma-focused therapy, which is an individual provider. This is a group model. So as we see more kids getting referred for services, if we can treat them in a group model, if they're appropriate for that, we can reach more kids, and with an evidence-based model, we can move them through treatment sooner. So we're doing our first training.
MEA week.
MEA, yep. We scheduled it then on purpose, so then we aren't missing student sessions during the school day. And we do have, I believe, 8 of our providers in the Brainerd district getting trained in this model. So we're very excited. Part of the model is we have to implement it. So you'll get to see that in probably the next semester that we'll be setting up some groups. And then Stephanie and I will be working on writing a grant proposal to the state of Minnesota, and it's a new initiative to do school-linked substance use disorder services for Minnesota students and families. It will be a pilot project, and we chose Brainerd to start it, and then we're hoping to expand into the other schools that we serve as well. So we have to dig into that this week to get it sent off. It's due next Monday. So we'll have more to come as if we get accepted and what that leads to. So that is the conclusion of our PowerPoint.
Great. Thank you so much for that. It's very interesting to me. My background is Master's in Social Work from University of North Dakota. And so I'm very pleased to hear what you're sharing. Just a few questions. I'll admit I had a few written down, and you actually responded to them.
Okay.
Which makes me wonder a little bit about what Heidi has above us in terms of cameras. But the two questions that I do have is, you might have mentioned it, but is this available where parents can access it or see it on the CLC or on the ISD 181 website? Does it have?
Ooh, I think there is a link.
If you go onto our webpage, there's actually a whole section dedicated for mental health. And so there's different services by schools, and then the link to Northern Pines is on that website as well.
And then my other question was, you'd mentioned parents have access. Actually, I had an access question, then you came up with the access slide, which is great. But can parents access it only by referral only, or could parents just give you a call and?
Yes, if they call in, we do need the referral form, so we have the paper trail of like the date the referral was made and the reason why and things like that, contact information. But if you were to call in, you may get our call center, you may get one of our care coordinators, and typically they'll just fill out the referral form while the parent's on the phone with them and then submit that in, and then we'll follow up with getting that child services.
But
So
it wouldn't
don't let
need
that
to
be
be pre-approved through like a medical provider or
No.
insurance.
Okay, so don't let that be a barrier.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Couple questions. I think you had mentioned 302, is that 302 active cases going on right now? Is that right? And how does, I think you had like 500 and some, was that all of last year? So is the 302 active today, is that up or down from this time last year?
So actually, it's up. So normally our referrals come up in not until October and November time, and then it kind of dips over the holidays, right? And then it comes up again in February and March. That is really our busiest time in February and March, and we do surveys here at the end of October, beginning November, and normally in that April, May time. But this year we're getting referrals first week of school. For one of our elementary program alone, we had gotten like 24 referrals in a week. And so this active number of 302 at this time of year is up than it normally is, and a higher capacity.
And then just to touch again, you had mentioned cases generally go up in October, November, and then February, March. And I assume that that's kind of a normal. We know why that is.
So usually in October, they're coming back, they're in that honeymoon period, they're loving school, and then behavior starts showing in those first 3-4 weeks of school. And we start getting, more IEP meetings are happening, more referrals are taking place in that October, November time. They're really getting to know their kids. And then over holidays, people are on break usually. And then after break, they're coming back, and February and March is that same time slump. It's usually in that typical curve. And then at the end of the school year, we remain open. We offer summer services in the form of individual, in-home, or group. However, a lot of our clients end up closing over the summer months. Their mental health is generally better, and there are vacations and more built in place that way. But that's usually the cyclical nature of our business.
And so with knowing that, are there things that we can do as a district to try to mitigate that? So we know what's going to happen. It's based on 2 reasons, 5 or 10 reasons. Are there things that we can do to get ahead of that game, to try to temper that down? A lot of it has to do with homes and parents, but are there things, I wonder, as a school district that we might be able to do to get ahead of that curve?
Well, what I have found helpful is that, when we do close, we call families and close maybe that May and June. We've started not a wait list, but a callback list for the fall. And so early identification and kind of knowing those students that are going to want those calls, we can start calling in July and August so that we can get them open and ready to go, and so that they're already active and going, so that we don't get such a large amount in a short amount of time, and so that we can be more active and proactive that way and make it more of a level year-round rather than the cyclical up and down. But I would be open to ideas and suggestions how we can better support our families in getting them active and enrolled in services.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we can add it to our strategic plan.
I have a quick question. You had mentioned on capacity, so last year we were at 500 some, right now we're at 300 some. Is there an upper limit? Do we experience wait times? Is it easier for people to access this when they need it?
Well, and I would say the 500 from last year, you know, there were maybe some that were open in September but closed by December, and then we had new referrals. So it wasn't always 500 open all at the same time. That was just the total number of kids served in the year. I'm sure we have an upper limit, but I would say the beauty about doing groups in the high school and the middle school is that at least if we get them set up for services, they can join a group to start. So if a therapist is full, we could have them join group to at least get some basic skills started. And then when there's an opening for the therapist, then they could get therapy services. I think last year in the spring, there was a short wait time at the high school to get in for services. But outside of that, our staff have done really well with getting all the kids in for services.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's a hard time to find staff, too.
It is a very hard time. And when you shared that you have a master's in social work, it took everything in me not to say, would you like to be a therapist at Northern Pines?
Let me know after November 8th.
I'll have donuts for Saturday.
I don't think you can answer this question, and maybe it's not a question, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that because we provide these services in the school, we are keeping a lot of kids in school.
Yes.
Rather than, do you have any idea of that impact?
You know, I don't have any like statistical or numerical data on that, but I mean, even just thinking if you were to drive your child to a therapy appointment right in Brainerd, you know, you have to get there probably 20 minutes early, get them out of class, drive them across town, they have their session, and depending upon when the session is, it's like, well, do we just go home for the rest of the day? Do I even bring my child back? And so being able to pull them just right from fifth hour and send them back, I think it's a huge time saver to keep kids in school. I think our team is also very strategic in who they're taking and what time. So if I were to be seeing a child that was working on some deep trauma, I would not see them first hour and then send them back to their school day. I would see them seventh hour, and if they weren't equipped to get on the bus to go home, I would be calling the parent to see if they could come pick up the child, because some of the things that we do in those sessions can be pretty heavy, and we don't want to send a dysregulated child back to class. So yeah, I don't know. I think it makes a huge difference keeping them in school longer.
And I know that we've had, you know, and this is just anecdotal stories, but we've had students come to school that day because they know they're getting to see their therapist that day.
Yeah, and that was that was kind of where I was going with that, but you answered another quick part of the question is, we're just keeping kids in school, period, and then we're also there, when they need the services, they're not gone for a long time, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every Monday, I do therapy over at the Brainerd Learning Center, and the first thing I do is I text all my clients their appointment reminders, just so they have it on their radar. And this morning, I came in a flurry, and I had to go right into an intake, and I wasn't able to send those texts, and 3 of my 5 kids text me to say, are we meeting today? So it matters to them that we're there.
Yeah. That's great to hear.
How long have these programs been in place in the district?
Ooh, a long time.
I think in 1992.
I was going to say,
correct?
Yeah, it's 30
So looking at the snapshot of the school year 21 to 22 and 520 odd cases, which don't necessarily represent 500 individuals, right? It could have been a lot more than that, but closed open kind of thing. How does that compare to, say, 3 years, so like pre-pandemic, for example?
Ooh, that's a good question. I could probably get that information.
Would be interesting data to see what that bell curve or what the chart looks like from, let's say, 2017 through now. And then as we look ahead to Director Hagelin's point, trying to think about, you know, if we can reasonably assume that we're going to see increased demand for those services, is there something that we can do to augment what you're doing, not really change what you're doing, but what other resources can we bring to bear that could theoretically dovetail with what you're trying to do?
Yeah.
Good comments, thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you for coming and sharing your report, and thank you for all you do for our children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
You can forget about the donuts.
Okay, next we have a Blueprint 181 project update. It looks like it's Mark Needham and Reed TC. Okay, yeah, so.
We have to, I don't know why she, it's an action, we have to take some.
Good evening, Mark Needham with ICS, here to present the Blueprint 181 project update. Noticeably shorter than previous updates. So the Washington Educational Services Building, this is the last project that we have and the only one that's not substantially complete. So this is kind of the total of the presentation. So Wesby here, we're into the pre-construction activities with the contractors. So we're working through submittals, procurement timelines, ironing out the plan on how to move through the building, and in general planning to complete the project, or to get it started in this case. Other items, the state plan review is still in progress. We're working through a demo permit application so we can get the project started on time. We are expecting to get our comments back here very shortly. We were expecting them last week, so we know it'll be soon. Other items we're working through, the proposed changes to the Welcome Center and the admin spaces. So we've done some design work looking at the admin spaces here on second floor, and then a reconfiguration of the Welcome Center to make it kind of communicate better between the different departments that are located within that space. So we're finalizing drawings. We're going to get pricing on that and then bring it to the board. And then just finally here, we had some asbestos abatement that took place. They had cleaned out some asbestos-containing materials down in the basement, and that has been wrapped up to this point. So as we continue to tear into walls and demo the rest of the building, I'm sure we'll have them back out to abate any identified materials. But at this time, they're done with the major portion of their work. And in record time, any questions?
Yeah.
One question.
Go ahead.
One question I forgot to ask, or I haven't thought to ask at project oversight, is at one point we had looked at touching or using some space from the gymnasium in Washington, but are we not going to touch it?
No, we're going to leave that as is. We talked about making some changes to it early on in the design process, but decided to leave it one for project budget reasons, because it was kind of a large scope to try and tackle. On another, it's an awesome historic space, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing.
Right.
So
I just thought this would be a good opportunity to say this building will be closing for reconstruction, and the Welcome Center is moving when?
Next Wednesday. So
Okay,
the
and
19th, and they'll reopen on Monday, the 20, what is that, the 20, what is it, 4th?
And they will be located?
At the wonderful Red House,
Okay.
located next to Riverside Elementary School.
Okay, so that's where the Welcome Center will be.
And we're gonna we'll put signage up.
Okay.
So there'll be signs where people can know to go, as well as immediate contact numbers. But WESBA is being dispersed amongst 5 facilities in the district. So
And then our next board meeting in November will be at Forest View Middle School in the choir room, not
Correct.
here.
Correct.
So, and we'll probably repeat that at the end of the meeting too, but important stuff.
It is important.
Yeah, as we get everything set up and as we're moving towards some of those spaces, we'll definitely be over communicating on social media platforms,
Website.
everything else that we can do. Yep, and on the minutes as they're posted and published in the paper on where that location will be for future board meetings.
Okay.
Reed or Mark, real quick, I noticed on our agenda here, it shows our next 2 meetings to be on October 18th and November 1st. So I wonder if we want to maybe push one of those. We can look at this later, but push it back to what would be the 8th, I think. So it's the Tuesday before the next board meeting. Maybe you guys take a peek at that.
You're talking for project oversight meetings?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Damien tried to fix the schedule and he messed it up again.
Yeah.
If we can look at that.
We will, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. Those 4 years have gone fast.
And slow at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes, very slow sometimes.
Okay, recognitions. I'll turn this over to Superintendent Hahn.
Homecoming seems like it was forever ago. It was a very rainy Friday night when we beat the Lumberjacks. They did amazing, and it was congratulations to our homecoming king, Connor Erickson, and queen, Ella Anderson, so for 2022. And then we have another huge congratulations to our Brainerd Warrior girls tennis team. Very impressive. They captured their 4th CLC championship, and they've been undefeated in the conference and have won 35 straight conference matches in a row. So I can't think of a time in history where that's happened. So we've had that streak going since 2018. They've won the first two rounds of sections. They now are going to the section semifinals next Thursday in Elk River against the #1 seed Elk River, and I think it's going to be a really exciting match. So congratulations to our tennis team and to Connor and to Ella.
Yeah, congratulations, wonderful. And next up we have public input, and I see I only have one here, and it's Doug Kern.
Well, last month we had Title IX. We had a great history of the Title IX in our school district. Title IX, one of the things that concerns me is the schools, the current administration, they decided that Title IX has to include gender, which means that if a male decides that he's pretty, he can compete against women. That's really concerning to me as far as a district, as far as a community. The people that I'm looking forward to voting for are not going to be supporting gender as part of Title IX. We're witnessing the destruction of women's sports if men can compete against women. One of the things that they are putting in place, the comment period for this gender being included ended about 2 weeks ago, I think. But one of the concerning things that I heard come out of this administration was that if the schools that don't comply, their free and reduced lunches, the funding for that will be taken away. I hope as far as, a school district that we will have people that will get on the school board that will not include gender in Title IX to protect women's sports. I don't want my grandchildren that I don't have yet, the kids that I have in Sunday school, I don't want the little girls showering with little boys because they feel pretty or competing against them even. So with that, Title IX, we need to keep it as is. And that was very, very awesome to hear about Title IX, 50 years of it here in Crow Wing County. So appreciate that.
Thank you. And that was the only public comment we had, so we'll go on to approval of the minutes from September 12th.
So moved.
A second.
First from Director Spear and a second from Director Blacklatz. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Excuse me. Consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first from Director Boyles, a second from Director Blacklatz. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next up, we'll talk about our plan for a strategic plan. Turn it over to Dr. Hahn.
Yep, it's there. Our mouse will work. All right. We finally get to talk about this. So I'm super excited. So what I have tonight to bring forward to you is the proposal to enter into an agreement to begin the strategic planning process. So we know that we need to have a blueprint to determine what our future will hold. And what's been exciting for me to sit here and hear from our candidates who are running and from our public is they want to be involved. They want to have a voice in that, and they want to set that roadmap for where we're going to be heading. And that's exactly what we need to have happen. So we know that our school board's job is to govern. And one of the ways to effectively govern is to have a very strong strategic plan. And we have done a wonderful job in the last 5 to 6 years really focusing on the facilities, and we've had beautiful facilities come to fruition. And now it's time to go back beyond facilities and really look at what is going to be our direction, what are going to be our priorities, and how are we going to tie our decisions to those priorities. And how we do that is through a very clear, easy to follow strategic plan. And really, it's the school board's job to do that in partnership with the superintendent, is to participate, create, and implement and adopt a strategic plan. So why do we need to do this? Well, one, it's a legal requirement. So we have that strategic plan in place. The biggest thing as a new superintendent coming in, what I'm excited about is really creating that team relationship and fostering those relationships to be able to set that motion and plan in place. It creates the roadmap, and it's going to drive and set very clear expectations for how we're going to be operating. It should drive how we're going to pursue the excellence for all students and academic achievement. It's going to provide clarity. So when it comes to making decisions, financially, policy-driven decisions, it's clear to our community and it's clear to our staff and all of those involved. Really, when we look at how we're going to evaluate, so when people ask how is Brainerd Public Schools performing, we should really be able to look at what's in our strategic plan and how are we meeting the goals and objectives within that strategic plan. Really, when we look at all the steps that are going to go in, and when I show you the proposal, of our strategic plan should be a reflection of our community, and it should align with our community values and the district operations that are taking place. The other thing is you're going to hear later from Mr. Murtha. He's going to report on our world's best workforce requirement. Our strategic plan should definitely be in alignment with that. And again, it's going to establish that framework for our governance and the continued work that we'll do together. What I'm recommending is that we consider entering into agreement with the Minnesota School Boards Association. They have expertise in strategic planning. One of the reasons I interviewed and spoke with 12 different superintendents who've used a variety of strategic planners, and repeatedly MSBA came out on top with having a very involved process with the entire community, with lots of listening sessions and things like that. It also came with a clear document, and a document that was something that we could take action upon. So in speaking with MSBA, this is a proposal I'm bringing forward to you. They actually have 4 phases that we would go through to create a strategic plan for our school district. The first and most intensive plan would be the planning process. And really what that involves is collecting all of the data and doing an analysis of that data. And so they would be involved in implementing and distributing both internal and external surveys. Those surveys would be anonymous and sent directly back to, her name is Gail Gilman. She's the Executive Director for Strategic Planning Services. She'd gather that data. Recommendation for a district our size is to have 15 to 20 different listening sessions. The intent of this is to allow every single member of our community who wants to have input and to have a voice and opportunity to be a part of that. And that job then is school board, so the timing of this is perfect. So school board candidates, listen closely. Your work is just about ready to begin. If you look at timing for this, January and February as a new school board member, so Tom and Ruth, you can sit back and relax a little bit, is completing that phase 1 and phase 2 training. So that'll give our new school board candidates and current members to get through that training of phase 1 and phase 2 with MSBA, and then starting in March, really that would be the goal to kind of launch into the strategic plan, which is really that intensive work of that 15 to 20 listening sessions. From there, really detailing focus groups or what have become areas where we think we need to give an additional attention to, gathering those focus groups together. Then what happens is MSBA takes all that information and comes back to us with that engagement report that we will have in front of us. And also then, as a superintendent, I would work directly with staff to really create what's called the state of the state and give a current picture of what's happening in our school district, academically, socially, curriculum, so we can put those 2 things side by side. That would be phase 1 of the strategic planning process. Stage 2 then is the development of that plan, and they really look at then identifying a strategic planning committee. We hope that when we go through some of these community listening sessions and focus groups, besides members of the board, we have administrative staff and community member staff that'll step up to be part of a strategic planning committee. As part of that time, we will really look at the foundational items of a strategic plan. What are our core values? What are our beliefs as a school district? What should be our mission statement and our vision statement to then again set the stage for creating that plan, and then really giving us those strategic directions. And once we know the strategic directions that we're headed, to then create those goals and objectives around that. Phase 3 is then really starting to look at how can we wrap up all that information and come up with a clean plan that can last 3 to 5 years, that has very clear written goals and objectives. And then how do we go into moving forward to adopt that plan and implement that plan. One of the pieces that I really appreciate with MSBA is as they get to this point, they really do an evaluation with the school board and the superintendent, kind of a self-evaluation to see if we're in a position to really implement and move forward with that and be able to communicate about what our strategic plan will be, and then that formal adoption and the start of the implementation of that strategic plan. Phase 4 is follow-up. So we don't just go through this whole process and move. They give follow-up and ongoing follow-up with us. They recommend at least a follow-up visit 1 year later, which then requires the school board and the superintendent to give that annual update. That's optional, but in my opinion, it's not optional. And then with regular time for us to refresh, revisit, and redo that strategic plan with the limited scope of at least 3 to 5 years and ongoing planning after that. In my research of why MSBA, they have expertise in what it means in school to be a school board and school board operations. They facilitate those skills, or they facilitate our meetings, and they've done that with small districts as well as extremely large districts and groups. Their staff will guide the process, so it's not internal staff trying to guide the process. It's an external organization that's looking to work with all of us. They're the ones that are responsible to record and provide all those reports, again, for that transparency and all the communication pieces that are involved. When you look at cost of doing a strategic plan, they're the most reasonable planners that we've looked at. And then again, like I said, I've spent time researching and speaking to 12 different districts about the outcomes and where they're at in their strategic planning process. And again, MSBA has consistently come at the top for leading that process, especially in an organization of this size. So my recommendation to you as a school board is that we enter an agreement with the Minnesota School Boards Association to start a strategic planning process with the intent that that process would begin in March of 2023 with a completion and having a strategic plan posted and ready to adopt by the end of May 2023, which again allows us time for our new school board that'll come in formation in December and January to actively be trained and then be actively engaged in leading that process. Any questions?
With the strategic plan and the planning of it, I like to hear that they want to involve the community. And you even mentioned about those focus groups. Would there be an online option that you know of where people that might not be able to get out, or people with young family?
This is the interesting thing. So the facilitator, Gail Gilman is her name, she's the executive director of that planning process. She facilitates everything through a virtual platform. So really what, from a school board member and from a community member, we have the opportunity to be in person, but she's facilitating virtually, which is allowing people to join us both in person and virtual. So there's never a cancellation because of weather. There's never a missed opportunity for somebody who physically can't be present. I'm kind of a personal, I like people right in front of me, but as I've talked more with her and Ruth and I have had conversation, it does allow us an opportunity to expand the participation for our community members and teams.
The board and administration will probably be in person most of these. It'll just be, she'll be offsite.
She'll be facilitating virtual, but again, when you look at those community listening sessions, it does allow, when we identify those groups in those meetings, to allow lots of opportunity for that. And the same for the focus groups.
So years ago, long before I was on the school board, a little less gray hair, a little thinner, I had the opportunity to be part of the long-range planning, facility planning for the school district. And there's about, 20 to 30 people that would get together in a room and have a lot of conversations and application to that. So is this similar to that, or would we have that option to bring some people at least?
That would be a component. So the long-range facilities planning would be a component of the strategic plan. So when you look at really all of our energy with long-range planning facilities has been construction. And what's nice is we're starting to have some of that deferred maintenance and facility maintenance dollars flow back to us outside of the construction. So those meetings are just beginning. So leadership teams and those that have been involved in the district system that have been identifying needs area or capital projects. And so that long-range facility planning will start. But we also talk as through our strategic plan, where is that in our priority? So when we talk about maintenance facilities, trust me, if you sit with Reed, he'll ramble for it's all these ideas, right? But really listening to our community and what's next, but that's a component of it.
So, sorry to belabor the point, but I wanted virtual to provide accessibility for some that might not be able to make it in person. But also, I don't know if I want the pendulum to completely sway so far to virtual where some people, like those in the room, they might want to come to campus or to a site. Will that be a
We will have that
possibility?
in-person availability, yes. The facilitator herself is going to be leading through the virtual platform, so she allows opportunity for both in-person and virtual.
Yeah. Thank you.
Heidi, a couple of things. One is I applaud you for just having the vision and the need for strategic planning. I've been missing that, and I'm grateful that you're bringing this forward. That's step one. It's a big step. In reviewing the presentation, what they offer to me is very old school. I already see the outcome. We've got these thick 3-ring binders, papers. So what I see is what's been around for years, and it's an old process for strategic planning. The idea of potentially coming back once a year for review, it's not going to work. It's not going to work for us. And I love the idea of using an outside facilitator. I've been privileged to probably work with 15 or more over the years, but I would highly recommend that we put this out and we seek other outside companies that do this. If we pay 2, 3, or 4 times the dollars, we get a good, strong return. That's far better. What I see here is just, again, a lot of documentation. I think we need a facilitator that's going to guide us and take ownership with it, versus just another 3-ring binder strategic plan. That's what I see in the presentation here. That's what I see. And it doesn't surprise me that other schools would go that route, but I'd sure love to see us, and I'm not going to be a part of it, but I'd sure love to see us do something more than kind of the same old thing. It's a great opportunity for us.
Can I challenge your notion?
Please.
So really, I think when it comes to any strategic planning process, the action of the strategic planning is going to lie with the members of the school board and the superintendent. So the plan that's developed by whatever organization that plans it, the responsibility to enact it, to review it, not just annually, but to me it should be a cornerstone of every school board meeting and every fiscal decision that happens within a school district lies within that. So to come out of a binder lies in our hands. And it's our responsibility to know what those goals and objectives are to make sure there's action that's moving forward. So,
and I totally agree with you. But that's what every school district says. That's what this district has been saying as well. What's different about outside facilitators that know how to make it successful is it is up to the board and the superintendent to make these things happen. But an outside facilitator that has skin in the game, to me, is going to be so much more powerful than. I mean, this is an old outline here of what they're developing, and so they're putting that back on the board and on the superintendent. I'd sure, have we entertained any outside firms that do this?
in my interviewing, so there's lots of strategic planning agencies. So again, cost factor. So if you want to set a budget, so that is a decision that should be made at a district level. My challenge is to give you a reasonable, well-versed, well-researched, vetted outcome and options. So that's why I've leaned towards MSBA. MSBA is highly skilled in training and working with public school boards. There's a lot of business organizations that don't understand public funding, public resources, and the response to elected officials in a capacity to create that strategic plan. So again, that's where MSBA holds that expertise. Our previous strategic plan that dates back to Superintendent Rezidlo, it was an outside independent gentleman. He's still doing some, but it hasn't had the results that have been explained when I've met with other superintendents. And so again, I'm open to that. I would challenge us though then who has the capability and background to understand elected positions, public finance, and the responsibility for schools.
Well, just a couple layers to it. I mean, part of my business heart goes over to where Director Hagelin is, where I'd like to see some innovation and some, for lack of a better word, sexiness to how we create a vibrant, living, breathing document that is constantly in review and, you know, not the 3-ring binder, as Tom says. On the other hand, who knows better best practices as it relates to how to implement different things like that in a school district? So I think, you know, with the caveat that I don't know who's out there or what that looks like, but the ones that we're all used to using in our corporate lives might not be able to speak the appropriate languages to guide us to those best practices and understand the things that you talked about, the immutable rules of public school finance policy, community engagement. When you run a private business, community engagement isn't really what you're focused on. I mean, you could argue that customer service and customer engagement is the same thing. We all know that's not really precisely a direct corollary. They're different, although the parents and the students are our customers, it's not the same. I think to reinforce what Tom said, I think I'd be interested in at least having us have some people at minimum create some presentations for us so we can kind of see what they would do. And then at least we can say we did some due diligence beyond just jumping on MSBA. That's kind of where I sit.
Okay. So my question for you are that the decisions I would like you to move forward with then are how to identify those, if it's through a request for proposal, what budget do you want to set, and then also the timeline for that. So typically it's an 18 to 24 month wait to have an expertise come in and start a strategic planning process with a business. As the new superintendent of your district, I guess I'm concerned as we move into January with hopefully the new formation of a school board and the training that will be required for those school board members to have the capacity and the ability to start entering into a strategic planning process. So I am willing to accept direction and directive to make that happen.
So Heidi, I have to admit what Kevin or what Director Boyles and Director Hagelin shared is it resonates with me a little bit. Mine is more from, I guess, specific experience in education. I've worked for higher education now for 24 years. I began when I was 12. But importantly is what I found along the way is that once a strategic plan is put in place, then it becomes a little bit like Sasquatch, where some people have seen it, some people claim they've seen it, some people believe it's there, others don't believe it's there, and that's where it lies. And fortunately, at the college where I work now, Central Lakes College, I think they have a very effective strategic plan and process. As professionally, I know where I sit within that strategic plan, which is an important piece of it. But the other variable that we have that's more of a question for me, and in terms of how MSBA might handle it, is how would the community make this a part of their own as well? Because when you listen to a lot of the discussions from some of the Brainerd school board candidates, or even myself, questions that we might have, it can all be encapsulated and dealt with through that strategic plan. So this is a fantastic opportunity for the community to bite off a significant piece of this in terms of being an active participant. And not only on the front end, like the long-range facility plan that I was a part of, and then just like Tom said, it was kind of booked up and then move away from it. But how will we continue to involve that community, our community, in terms of that active role moving forward? And I believe that capacity lies with you, but also with the board and the new board that'll be seated after January 1st. But I think it's something, and I believe it's something that has to stay in front of us. And I feel more comfortable if that path is laid out before us. And I would feel more comfortable if that was laid out to us from the entity that's going to be bringing us through that process. It could be just educating me on this and I just haven't seen it or heard it yet. But if we're going to spend money for this, it'd be nice to have those type of pieces together.
And that's the intent when we looked at it, when really looking at the phases of strategic planning. One of the largest emphasis I put when I was seeking out and speaking for different strategic planning proposals is how are you going to engage our community? How are you going to get that input? How are you going to get that feedback? And then how does it tie back to? And that's when you look at that planning phase one, there's really a lot of time spent there. And then the second part is then it goes back to what are our core beliefs, what are our values, and then how does that correlate into a mission and vision, and then the creation from there. So those are the facets that were laid out to me when I've looked at other entities at MSBA. If you would prefer to do it, that RFP proposal, again, then it's time and cost. And how you want that to move forward.
I guess my last comment, and we'll have to process it a bit, I guess, but I'd rather make sure that we're right, or that we're making the best decision, and if that means we have to wait a bit, and especially when it relates to the community and everybody having an active role in this, I'm okay with waiting a bit if need be. I definitely hear what you're saying, but I just don't want to rush it. Not that you're rushing it, but I think there's some significant questions that are asked here that we might need to.
So I can have clarification. Are you wanting people to come give you individual presentations from their strategic planning process so you can vote on a strategic planner?
I think we need to give a little more direction on that, because I heard two separate things, that the strategic planning process itself was lacking, and then I heard that the implementation piece of it was lacking. So I don't know if it's the strategic planning process is what we put into it, and it's on us to put that into it. But the implementation, if we're looking, we want a coach that can come in and help us do that and implement well, or to help communicate it well. I think that's something different completely, and I would agree that would be really helpful. I think it would be important to make sure if we're going to be able to implement this, that we do it well. So I think that's two separate things, but if we want to give direction on what we're looking for, that's how I'm looking at it.
Well, I would say that both Directors Hagelin and Spear probably have more experience with strategic planning than I do. We did it at my prior firm, but we didn't do it very well. So I know what doesn't work. I'm wondering, from an options perspective, if there's, let's say we decided to go with MSBA, but we also wanted to hire a strategic planning consultant to look at the strategic plan that they design and to assist us with the implementation. Is that the sort of thing that exists out there that we could look at? Obviously, it's extra cost, but it might be another way to look at, how to take, and marry those two ideas of understanding the institutionalized nature of crafting something like this.
Individuals I spoke with, they kind of own and operate the whole process. So I think I'd have to go back and research and engage in more conversation. I think I would look for detail from them, what would be the direction you, the board, would like to go. So I can enact in that conversation more clear and then do more specific engagement. I would encourage us to speak to public schools in that process, because that's the business we're in, is that process. So again, the ones that I've spoken to that have used some independent, they have mixed results, but I'm happy to explore more, but I would like to know the box that I'm exploring so I can come back to you then with that information. My concern then too then will be timing. So typically then when you enter into contract agreement and negotiations, we're looking at anywhere from an 18 to 24-month process. And so we are in the state of a school district now with not a strategic plan and not a current plan in place of moving forward. So for the last 5 years, our energy has been spent on facilities. And so that long-range planning and strategic planning is not in place. And I guess that's my concern as a superintendent sitting in this new role, is that I don't think I should be operating in a sense of independent decision-making with no strategic plan to hang a decision upon. So that is of grave concern to me. And when I interviewed for this, I told you that that was one of our concerns. It's a significant concern for our leadership team. When we're having questions about transparency and communication, that all links back to a strategic plan. Because then it is a cooperative work that's being done with the voice of community being enacted upon by the governing board of the school board in conjunction with the superintendent. So
that does put you in a really difficult spot. And I think, that's probably our budget is contingent on what direction we go with the strategic plan as well. And so I think you're on the right track with the community investment in this and getting community buy-in and voice. And I think getting the expertise of someone that works with schools, I think is really important. Just from having done lots of strategic planning, to have someone come in and learn your business is really hard. It's a big lift. And so if they have some experience already with like organizations, it's helpful.
And that would be one of the reasons I lean towards MSBA in my conversations, just because of that expertise of school districts and working directly with school boards to enact upon that strategic plan. But I am open. I just want to know the bigger box and the further direction. And when we do make fiscal decisions, like what are our priorities in the school district? Because we will be starting, we're already in the midst of budgeting, and we're making budgeting decisions. What are we
And I
basing
think
those decisions
part of
upon?
the difficulty tonight is you've talked to all these people and we're just seeing this right now. And so, you know, you have the comfort that the people at this board maybe don't quite have yet with MSBA because you've talked to other school districts, but.
And I'd encourage you, I mean, that's the same thing. So and I put that all in your packet, they have the school districts listed that they've worked with and who they're currently working with. You can reach out to them. However, if you'd like me to look at other directions and other strategic planners, I'm open. Again, I'm in the education field, so the people I'm talking to are the ones that have been doing educational strategic planning. So if you have additional suggestions or ideas, I would be very much interested in learning that more.
I'm not going to be here next year, but I know I respect MSBA. I know they, like you said, they obviously know schools. I think we'd get a good product out of this. I think it's up to the board to make it as good as it can be and to follow up on it.
I think with some of the thoughts or concerns that I brought up, that might be something we could bolt onto the existing conversation you have with MSBA right now.
And actually, MSBA would be willing to present directly to you, but if there's somebody else that you would like to come directly present to you, like I said, there's been several organizations, typically they're independent individuals that do strategic planning. If you'd prefer it that way, we sure can.
So if that helps from my end, I would be fine with just, and we could visit more about.
Okay.
Just to help finalize like 2 questions maybe as it relates to implementation.
Okay, so then I think what I can do is I'll try to bring a broader range of menu options for you. So then you can vote on. Just hear me say as the superintendent and speaking on behalf of our leadership team, it's a very important priority.
Yeah, I don't think you can wait 2 years for it.
I don't think so either.
I'm excited you're bringing it forward though.
I am too, so I'll continue to look, but if you have suggestions, I'm open to that.
So we will relook at this next meeting. Is that what we're saying?
I think my direction is to get you more options.
Okay.
Did I hear that correctly?
Right. For the next meeting.
Well, there's an action item, so you can clarify on the action item, maybe when we get there?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so there is an action item to approve the contract for the MSBA.
Did they already give us a budget or a pricing quote on it?
It was in the, yes, in there.
I saw that, I thought, yeah, I just missed that. Yeah,
And I think then too, if, speaking with strategic planners, if you want to set a budget target.
Heidi, in the research you did and talking to some of the others that specialize in education, did you get a sense of budget range for that particular sector?
It really depends on what levels you're looking for.
Okay.
One of the things why I leaned towards MSBA again was the community piece. When you're looking at 15 to 20 listening sessions and having all that documented, as well as aligning that with the state and then doing some really strong focus groups. A lot of times when you're looking at other individual strategic planners, they're gonna, well, if you want this, it's this. If you want this, it's this.
Yeah, I think that is really important to the plan. And I noticed, it does say adoption and implementation. I just would like to know more about what that means.
And I can get you more of that information. Absolutely. So I don't know if you just table it for more.
Okay. We'll table it. Okay.
very good.
Okay, next up is the
We need to get there.
approval to renew the lease agreement with Crow County for the school farm.
All right.
We've done this before.
We have done this one before, yes, just a year ago. So in front of you is a lease agreement renewal for the property located on Highway 25. near the Drummond Winery for the operation of our old high school farm. As many of you know, we don't have a program that currently runs out there, but we do utilize the facility still. In the wintertime, it serves as a warm maintenance facility for us for all of our grounds maintenance equipment, and we have storage at that site as well. I did meet with Crow Wing County in July. I attended a committee of the whole meeting. I have talked with Commissioner Paul Coring, and the county's desire is one that knowing that this property has kind of been sitting underutilized, that they would prefer us to have a conversation with them or allow us to have a conversation with them about one, either do we want this for long-term facilities planning, strategic planning. You know, there's things out there that I can think of that we could utilize property for, but it has to fit within that model. And I know Director Hagelin, you and I we've talked a little bit about some ideas, but you know, it's going to be some time down the road. Crow Wing County prefers that we would move a little sooner on this, and so that's why the duration here is a 1-year lease, is one to kind of prompt the discussion to start to happen. So just like we've been talking about with strategic planning here, is just really kind of put a fire under this one and get some direction on it. So in front of you today is a lease for a 1-year extension to the contract that we've renewed now for decades. And so really it's a 1-year get us by until we have that more detailed conversation and a direction. Same terms and conditions.
Well, I'll move to approve the lease agreement as presented.
I'll second.
First from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Blacklands. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And you're up again.
Yeah,
for
well,
that snow removal.
I'll add on to
I'm
I'm going to add on to the last subject real quick. So then next month I will bring forward, then we have the lease with the center for the use of it for their greenhouse program that they do every winter. So I'll bring that back to you next month. Okay, next item is renewal of the snow removal services proposal. Last year, as you may recall, we switched our services deliverable from plowing after 3 inches of snow to plowing after every event. I received a lot of positive feedback on how well things went last year. And as an example, it was the snowiest year we've had in 6 years. So in the 6 years of data that I've been collecting here, obviously I haven't been here 6 years, but in the 6 years of data that I do have in front of me, it was the snowiest year other than 2017, 2018. So it was a lot of snow last year. We had many events. We've had a lot of conversations with Heidi and Lane and board members about canceling school. And I thought that the services that were provided last year were top notch. The effort that we spent from buildings and grounds on our on the parking lots and the facilities where we had to previously do service was almost non-existent. We were freed up to focus our efforts in other areas. And so we've had plenty of conversation about how do we build capacity in teams. And from the buildings and grounds standpoint, this is one avenue that we looked at to build us a little bit of capacity. I freed up staff to be able to go out and help the buildings take care of their specific buildings. So my grounds workers would go to specific sites and rescue the custodial team when they got a little bit overwhelmed with some of the snow that we had last year, and it really worked out really well for us. So in front of you is a renewal. We did change around some of the services. We were able to keep the price the same, but we had to switch around where they were plowing a little bit. Obviously, we are going to be out of Washington here, and we're opening up our new east parking lots, and so we've kind of moved a few services around, but we've maintained that same price. I was pleased to see that it was the same price, because as we know, diesel went from $2.85 a gallon to now $5 a gallon. Skid steer and plowing equipment you can't find it. We're looking to buy 2 tractors right now, and they're shipping them from southern Minnesota just to get here for this winter. So I was very pleased to see a renewal come in at the same price point. And we will have to price this out again next year, just because we're going to have the full boat of services then after construction is complete. So, questions?
Just a couple of quick questions. Is that Oscar Christopherson Park? I thought that was owned by the city of Axel.
So Oscar Christopherson Park, the property line runs right on the west side. Actually, part of the outfield ball fields is on the school district property. So that parking lot that runs through there, it's kind of Z-shaped in a way.
Oh, that's where
Yeah,
where the
it's a
staff
shared.
Okay, that's,
Yep,
okay.
it's where the Wesby
So it's not
staff.
okay.
Yep.
And then, I know we talked about this a lot last year, being that it's, this is what the cost is regardless of how much snow we get or lack of.
Yep.
Did they come out okay then, Mike Street Company last year?
In my conversations with Mike Schwarzy, Chris Biermeyer, and Nick Miltimore, all of their, obviously Mike is the owner, and then Nick and Chris as their leads, they were extremely pleased with it. They thought it worked out well for them. They've been able to find people. It was a good spot. It's harder for them to plow 50 businesses versus having one big contract. So they knew they could send their people to one spot, and they said it worked out great for them, so.
Okay, thank you.
I move to approve or renew the contract with Mike's Tree Company for snow removal services for the 22-23 school year for $174,993.
I'll second.
The first from Director Blacklock, second from Director Boyles. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Good work, thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have approval of the bid process and contract for the sale of Brainerd High School Building Trades House with Edina Realty.
Good evening. In your packet is a request for bid. So in the past, there's also a listing contract. And in the past, we would present the listing contract. Our realtor, Brad Watson, would try to solicit solicit a sale. We've had several requests this year, so we're going to do the bid so that everyone has the opportunity to potentially bid. In the past, it was first come, first serve. This will go in the paper this week, and then the bids are due November 1st. We'll have a bid opening on the 2nd, and then the winner, hopefully we would have a proposal or a purchase agreement to present at the next board meeting. So
Yeah, we used to do it this way, and then I think it was a slow time or something.
I think so.
And so then we went and listed it. So now we're back, because it actually kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. So I worked with Brian Boardwell. He's the one who is the certified staff. Brad Watson. We put this all together, and then to determine the price, $98,500 was the minimum based on his estimated costs. So hopefully we'll get some responses.
So this is for the structure that's to the west of the school right now?
That they're going to build, yep.
That they're just like they got
They're
the
just
sides
starting.
up and
Correct. Yes.
And we're running the bid process, and then we handed it over for the purchase agreement to the real estate.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid process and contract for the sale of the Brainerd High School Building Trades House with Edina Realty as presented.
I second.
First from Director Spear, a second from Director Blacklock. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
And next up, we still have, okay.
I'm going
thought
to
you were
invite
leaving.
Eric to come
Okay.
up here. And this is our first time seeing each other face to face, so I wasn't sure if he was here or not. So in your packet is also a resolution. I'm going to let Eric explain the why behind he's presenting this. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free.
Yes, move this over a little bit. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Eric Charpentier. I am the Executive Director for the Brainerd Housing and Redevelopment Authority. In front of you in your packet this evening, you'll see a resolution that we at the HRA are requesting of the board to allow, by board resolution, to terminate a real estate assessment that is currently on a property in a TIF district that we've got. And if you would give me a chance, I'll give you a little bit of background on what's going on with that. The Brainerd HRA established a tax increment financing redevelopment district back in 2005. That did include property located at 416 South 6th Street. A lot of people refer to that as the SEH building for reference. There is a minimum assessment agreement in place that was entered into by the HRA at the time and that investment group when the project was initially completed. Based on the terms of that agreement, the current assessed value of the 4 parcels that are encompassing that property is approximately $2.5 million in value. That would equate approximately to about $45,000 of tax increment financing tax revenue in 2022. That assessment agreement also includes a provision that minimum annual taxable value include a 3% inflator every year. So the HRA back in 2005 did issue a tax increment revenue note that we took out. So we took out some bonds to help this redevelopment project go in the amount of about $753,000 to facilitate the redevelopment of that project with the expectation that the annual increment that we would gain off of that from that revenue would support that annual debt service to us. The increment revenues generated by that project is approximately $44,000 to $45,000 per year, and those are collected by the HRA to repay those TIF that TIF revenue note. From the inception of that note in 2005, there really has not been enough increment revenue generated to pay the entire debt service, so the HRA has been kicking in about $12,000 per year of our levy dollars to cover that. Jump forward to where we're at now. We did have a new ownership group that purchased that building in 2022 in August, and they are planning on bringing their office staff down to work in downtown. It's going to be a really great project. We're really excited for that. In kind, they also approached the HRA at that point to see if we would ever look at terminating that assessment agreement. Again, that goes up 3% a year for them. Those taxes are likely quite inflated to what normal revenue or normal tax assessed value would be at that property. They did in kind say that they would pay off the remaining balance of our TIF bonds. So that would help the HRA out in the fact that we would be paying interest for the next 4 years when that would normally pay out in the next 4 years. It would also allow us to start paying ourselves back on that TIF revenue that we've been kicking in from the HRA. Our board did look to adopt that, and we did that in August. We did go through an investment group or bond revenue group that did say that we should be able to get our investment back if we do this and pay off our bond debt early. That TIF district will still be in place until 2031 for us to allow us to repay ourselves basically through that. Why do we need the school board involvement, right? You might be asking that. Well, per our bond council, the 3 taxing authorities within Crow Wing County, so City of Brainerd, Crow Wing County, and the school district, all must approve that termination, as we believe that the assessment of the property once we terminate this assessment agreement will fall considerably. That's going to help that new owner out. That's why they're wanting us to do this, is they're going to realize a much lower tax value on that property, but it also will lower the increment that we're going to get up until 2031. Because all 3 districts need to approve this, that's why I'm in front of you guys today. This does not actually affect how much tax revenue that the school district, the city, or the county get, because that's based off of the property value at the time before that redevelopment occurred. Once 2031 and the assessment district goes away, or when the TIF district goes away, then the school district, the city, and the county will realize a little bit higher tax revenue off of that property, but it really does not affect the district up until that point. So the request really is to allow us to repay our bond debt, allow this new owner to realize a little bit lower tax payment that they will get starting in 2024. Everything is in place for 2023 at this point, and then we will hopefully get repaid back throughout the term till 2031.
Thank you for explaining that, because when I looked at this, I was like, what are we doing?
TIF is a little confusing.
Yeah.
So Eric, is the entire value of that property in the TIF right now?
No, but it's going to be the majority of that portion. So think of the buildings that were in place prior to that redevelopment.
Right.
That value is what that TIF is based on, and anything above and beyond, that's what's in that increment.
So the tax that the district is receiving is of that lower value of
Correct.
what it was then, and that we're going to see that through 31 and then it'll go back to market value.
Correct. And now, you know, in a corollary, if we were to be paid back our investment before 2031, we would have the impetus to go ahead and terminate the assessment district. And then the school district may see that beforehand. But at this point, our plan is to see that through till 2031.
And I did confirm with Ellers exactly what he's saying is accurate, not that I.
Well, good.
And then our legal counsel did review the resolution and had no issues with it.
No. Okay. I'll move to approve the resolution to terminate an assessment agreement between the HRA and Nelson Keepers LLP as presented.
I'll second.
I think Director Spear got it first. We have a first from Director Hagel and a second from Director Spear. Any other questions or comments? Again, thank you for that good explanation. And this is a roll call vote.
Kevin Boyles.
Yes.
Tom Hagelin.
Yes.
Ruth Nelson.
Yes.
Sarah Spear.
Yes.
Charles Blacklance.
Yes.
All in favor?
All in favor, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Okay, next up we have approval of the resolution on a school board vacancy as presented. And this is something that MSBA got in touch with me about, and they're preparing, and it's attached here, a document, proposed legislative resolution as far as when, and this pertains to when Director Sjogren resigned, and we ended up having to get a school board member in for 1 month. So they wrote up a resolution that will change that. Right now, the current law says the appointment shall be evidenced by a resolution entered in the minutes and shall be effective 30 days following the adoption of the resolution for vacancy. And they would change it so, let's see, it has it in here. Not to mandate a school board to appoint a new member after resignation when there is less than 3 months remaining in the term of the resignee. So rather than mandating that, it would be optional. So we wouldn't have had to go through the process of appointing someone for 1 month.
And it's
just
MSBA's intent to bring it to legislation.
Right. They just want us to support that resolution.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. I advocated for adding more than the 3 months,
Yeah,
but they said that might happen, you know, when they get there, so.
Nice.
So we need a motion to approve the
I
resolution.
move to approve the resolution on school board vacancy as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
First from Director Blacklance, a second from Director Hagelin. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Tom Hagelin.
Yes.
Ruth Nelson.
Yes.
Sarah Spear.
Yes.
Charles Blacklance.
Yes.
Kevin Boyles.
Yes.
All in favor?
The resolution is approved. A lot of action items tonight. Next up, we have some policy reviews. Service animals is first.
I'll stay right here for this one. So
Okay.
we have a service animal policy, policy 110. One of the questions that's been brought forward, and actually this was brought to our legal counsel on February 7th of 2020. And thus it stayed there since February 7th, 2020, is regarding therapy animals. So we have different mental health agencies or service providers who would like to bring in a therapy animal. A lot of times they're brought in for some type of mental health support or emotional support for students. A therapy animal would be a staff initiated, meaning there's a licensed handler and there's a whole process that's put forth in the policy about how they'll be licensed, vaccinated, registered for liability insurance in order to provide that therapy services within the buildings. So we used to have a therapy dog that came and did some reading at NISWA. We had another counselor that used to bring a therapy dog into the Brain and Learning Center. It was never encompassed in policy. Therefore, we stopped all therapy animals from coming into the schools. So we'd like to have that reflected in policy in order to allow that. We're in the process of developing what's called a registration agreement. So then the owner would have to have on file all that documentation that's outlined within the policy. So this is just the first reading of that for consideration.
I move to approve the first reading of revised policy number 110, service animals as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first from Director Blacklance, a second from Director Spear. Any discussion? I would love to get some therapy animals in our schools.
I know, we've had lots of requests and we've had to deny it. So I think you have some staff and students pretty anxious.
Yeah, but quick question for you, Heidi. I noticed we have in the above section that there's some information about who's the exchange of liability. Do we need to have any kind of agreement?
So that's one of
to
the
transfer the liability?
So what happens is a lot of a truly registered therapy, and it's a dog. We're not going to allow all the other things, even though service animal allows a provision for a miniature horse. These are about dogs coming in. A lot of our therapy animals are registered and they come with a separate liability policy. We would ask for proof of that liability. So we don't do that with service animals because that's against the law. We would do that with our therapy animals. So they'd have to be have appropriate licensure within the city. Different cities required licensures for dogs. They'd have to have proof of current vaccination, and then they'd have to have proof and have it with us. We create that file on district site of that liability insurance.
So they take that on fully?
They take it, all costs are associated with that individual. And then no therapy animal, dog, could enter the building without previous approval by the building administrator. So there'd be notification that the animal was coming in.
Love to see dogs in the building.
I know. I know the Legion bought a therapy dog for another school in town. I'd like the Legion to buy us a therapy dog. So, it's been a void we've had.
Okay, so we have a first, second. Any other comments, discussions, other than we all want to see dogs in our schools? Okay, all in favor say.
Registered, approved.
Yes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, and then conflict of interest for school board members.
Oh, I get to present on that one too?
Yeah, it says you, yeah.
I didn't know I was gotta sign that one. This is a revision based on the income amount. So if you look in, it's gonna be on the third page. The original provision, when you looked at a school board member under contract or employment with a district, the maximum dollar amount that they could make was not to exceed $8,000. This policy is being rewritten with recommendation of MSBA to raise that to $20,000. So when you look at dollars made, a lot of this applies to coaching or substitute teaching or other positions that a board member had.
And this was based on a change in state regulations.
It's coming from the state side. It wasn't Brainerd Public Schools deciding let's raise it. This is coming from the state. But we have not updated the policy to reflect that.
Move to approve the first reading of revised MSBA policy 210 as presented.
Second.
First from Director Hagelin, second from Director Boyles. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next up is a revised MSA policy for student dress and appearance.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Bennett.
How's everybody? Good. All right, hopefully mine will be pretty quick. I have one right after this as well, so I'll just stay up here. This is for the 504 student dress and appearance. We were taking a look at this policy and just wanted to make a couple edits and bring that to the board for approval. The main change in this policy is to include the term body art as an accessory. So that would include temporary tattoos, permanent tattoos, just that it still needs to follow the same guidance as it would for, you know, jewelry, clothing, shoes, all of those good things. I did make one other clarifying statement on the second page as well in regard to headgear, including hats, as in the high school currently is allowing the usage of hats during the day. So I just made a clarifying statement in there that secondary schools may allow students to wear the headgear as appropriate, but with approval from the superintendent or designee, and then included dress-up days, because we do have hat days sometimes for homecoming. So just to make that a little more clear. Any questions about this one?
I'll move to approve the first reading of MSBA policy 504 as presented.
I'll second.
First from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Spear. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. Oh, did you have one?
I just had one quick question. I know it says it in the opening sentence, but do we want to define what accessories are? Like we did with gangs at the bottom there? I don't know that we have to, but we mention it a bunch of times and it might not be clear that
Well,
it includes body
yeah,
art.
I mean, beforehand, it used to be accessories such as jewelry was what was in our currently approved policy. So I just kind of expanded that a little bit. But we certainly could go back and look and create like a definition if you'd like to do that, and then include all sorts of things under
I
it.
don't, maybe it's just me, doesn't.
Yeah, I think the impetus of this was tattoos.
Mhm.
Really, when we're looking at, when there's things such as, you know, lewd or crude or offensive, we have that attached to shirts and lots of other things, that when it's body art such as a tattoo, it was not addressed directly in policy. So the impetus of this change was tattoos. So trying to define where you put tattoo, it was under accessory.
No, and that's fine. If that's clear that body art is an accessory, I'm good with that. In the opening sentence says that, but I don't know if we wanted to define
Yeah,
that.
I'm happy to do it if you guys feel that would be helpful.
Not bent on it.
Can we have an accessories identification committee? List all accessories.
I'm good with it.
You're good?
Okay.
Okay, so we have a first from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Spear, the policy as presented. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then we have a handbook to approve.
Yep, so we have been meeting with our head cooks for the past couple of months, and this is another unit that is currently an at-will group. However, they broke away from the cooks many years ago, and kind of their agreement, I guess, really mimicked a lot of what the cooks' language was. So we're really just further clarifying the different roles, that they're not a union group, but we wanted to certainly meet with those employees to see what was important to them for the terms and conditions of employment. So we kind of followed that same compensation and benefit handbook structure, I guess, as we've been starting to do this year. So you'll see a little bit of changes from the last agreement that they had, just to more clearly define things. But we're able to do a 2% increase on steps 1 through 3 and a 1.5 for step 4, which is the highest. The reason we went a little bit lower on that last step is because it's really at the high end, if not a little bit above market. And so just really kind of slowing down that hourly wage. And then there was a big gap between step 3 and 4, so trying to close those steps a little bit more. But to honor those employees who have been with us, because we do have them for 20, 30 years, is to really increase that longevity pay. They had a little bit of a breakdown, but we were able to use some of the dollars of the package to kind of bump up those longevity payments to really honor their work with the district. Any questions on this one?
Good work, I like the handbooks.
I move towards approval of the 22 to 24 compensation and benefits handbook as presented.
I'll second.
First from Director Blacklands, second from Director Spear. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Murtha with part 2 of the data assessment review.
Good evening. Did you bring a blanket and a pillow?
Just kidding.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay. I'm really bringing two things forward tonight, which are connected to the presentation of the proficiency data and the continuous improvement process work that was shared at the last board's meeting. So what you have in front of you, and what this first request is the approval of the summary document. In that summary document are the site goals for each of the sites in the district. It states what their primary goal is, their ACOMP goal, and then it has a brief summary of the strategies that they wanted. That was feedback that I received after last month's meeting was, could we get a condensed summary of what each of the sites are doing. So that's been provided in that document. So that's the document being provided. In addition to that, also as a way of providing a condensed explanation of what the groups do and how they do it, we provided the one-pagers. And what the one-pagers are is, this is the communication document. This is the document that's the last thing that you produce at the CIP retreat. This is what goes to your staff at the next staff meeting or at the site meeting, where you guys, our leadership team created this. This should be in your classroom. This is what we should be referring back to at staff meetings. This should be how we're communicating to our stakeholders, our parents, our students, teachers, education professionals, whoever's involved, what we do at a glance. That's what the purpose of that is. The second request I'm going to make tonight is a little bit more detailed of the World's Best Workforce Plan. But for this, right now, what I want to do is just loop back. These are the key findings that I shared with you that from a district perspective that we saw in the review of the continuous improvement data. We had some highlights that we saw some success in areas that we wanted to make note of because we always want to emphasize the positive. And then the next thing I did is I pulled one of the visions of actions out. This is something that you would see in a site plan as an area of focus for a building. So I just took one from Forest View. They're going to have some study groups. They're going to be working on some things. And in the next 2 or 3 slides, I'm going to show you how, from a site perspective, they drill down more deeply to this. No, I'm not going to go through all 11 sites' continuous improvement plan documents. As you will see in the last couple slides, you'd be dealing with dozens, if not hundreds of pages. What this is the cleaned up version. These are living documents. There are touch points throughout the year where the sites go in and do work, they update, they change. They call me and they say, hey, are we allowed to change this? I'm saying, of course you're allowed to change this. Okay, what it needs to do is work for you. Stick with whatever your goals are, but as you learn through your implementation process, the strengths and weaknesses of what your planning has been, respond accordingly and respond professionally. Pulled some examples out that Baxter is working on. Now, what's interesting about these 4 is these are all what we would consider standard work. So sometimes the CIP process is focusing on the innovative and the change. But sometimes it is, you have to come back to nailing down what is the fundamental work that we do? What are the standard systems in place that everyone's expected to follow? And every once in a while, you have to remind everyone that, guys, this is what the expectation is. And as you hopefully would recognize that each and every single one of those things is something that's come before the board over the years as structures, systems, and adoptions that we've made. This is where I'm going to drill down a little bit. 5.2.1.3. This is the language I speak. This is the world I live in. This is an example from Lowell of the beginning of their planning to fulfill one of their visions of action. And so what they're doing is they go through this, is they're identifying how to break down that outcome into component parts. Define it, identify it, nail down the resources needed to do it. Define when's the due date. Define who's accountable for it, and then making sure that they can define how will we know when it's done. So this is the Plan, Do, Study, Act process. This is the core of continuous improvement work. And these are the most important portions of any site's continuous improvement plan. So this would be one portion of one site's work on one vision to improve. The next thing that they would do is dig down deeper. This is the second page of the same piece. They're still planning here. They're still defining what the work is, when it's going to be due, and what resources need to be levied towards it, who is accountable, and what's the evidence of success. And it goes on. This is what they do. I share this in the interest of full transparency and a recognition of the work that they commit themselves to. Let's remember that the teacher teams that come in for the CIP retreat August 9th and 10th are coming in outside of contract time. And they're representing the stakeholders in their buildings, their other teacher colleagues and other groups, and they're putting in tremendous amount of work to drill down to the details of how do we do How are we going to meet the goals that we set? Earlier in the conversation this evening, Director Hagelin correctly identified the weaknesses of all processes. And that's, in the end, who was accountable? Was there fidelity to not just the goals and the process, but is there fidelity to the accountability? What I'm asking for you is your support in recognizing that there is fidelity here, but by adopting and approving these goals, we're also putting muscle and teeth into the accountability that helps support the sense of urgency that I referenced last month. And even though section 5.2, 1 through 5, are the most important portions of any continuous improvement plan in the district, none of it will matter if the sense of urgency is not there and the collective efficacy to do that. That comes with the professionalism of the staff involved, but it also comes with the leadership from the board and the district leadership team. Okay, my trend data, there it is. I also promised you to share out the trend data from the last couple of years, that is student achievement data. The teachers in the site teams did their work on proficiency data, and that's what I shared with you in the last month's presentation. And the difference between proficiency data and achievement data is proficiency data is those students who meet or exceed proficiency on whatever Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment they're taking, versus those who took the test but did not meet proficiency. Student achievement data is those students who met or exceeded proficiency against every student enrolled in the school, regardless of whether or not they took the test. So a student who does not take the MCA constitutes a non-proficient. So there's always a small calculable difference between the student achievement data and the proficiency data. We did not receive from MDE the achievement data till the night before the data retreat. Therefore, it was not actionable for us at that time. So we did it with the proficiency data. The trend lines are exactly the same. The numbers here are just going to be a little bit lower. But in the interest of full transparency, I've shared with you the historic record. This is what's known as the fishhook slide, one of the fishhook slides. I've shared this with you repeatedly over the years. You will notice that 2022 is not included here. And in the third slide, I can give you a graphic representation why. Why? Because at the time that they took the test, there's a hole in it because they had a year where they weren't tested. So it shows up as a big zero and it blows this graph up all over the place and makes it less intelligible than it is. But the value of this slide is historic patterns of success, challenge, recovery, and move on. When we get to the math trend data, you're going to see a very similar pattern. It's just far more pronounced. And you will notice that going back to the identified areas of success, that 5th grade language arts at Forest View is one of them. 8th grade math at Forest View is another, and it's a historic pattern of that success. Okay. In this case, you'll see that the 2021 class is omitted because they're going to be the ones who are missing a test from 2020 spring. That blows it all up. Now science, and this is the demonstration of it, and it's quite unintentional because I forgot to tell Ms. Anderson not to include the data. This is what happens when you have the null sets in the system. So in the class of 2022 here, the high school data blows out. In the class of 2024, it blows out as well. But if you pull those two classes out, you'll see the same pattern evolving. In the case of science, yes, we have an absolutely fantastic science team, and historically they have been rock star producers of student achievement. But it also is a structural one. And the reason I refer this is not to diminish the excellence of that team in any way, shape, or form. But this is the part that needs to be addressed in strategic planning as we move forward. What are some of the structures in place organizationally that contribute to success? And in the case of 5th grade science, by virtue of Brainerd's 5th grade being at the middle school, they receive everyday science. on a middle school schedule, whereas most fifth grades in the state are not in the middle school. They're usually in the elementary school, which means they're part of an integrated unit structure, which means that there aren't always as many minutes of instruction by a specialist dedicated to that. So when you have more minutes of instruction in a content area, you're going to see a positive result if that's a good team. We have a great team. That is historically outstanding data. Okay, I just wanted to share that. Planting a seed for, when we go through strategic planning, day structure, course alignment, course structures, course locations, those things should be considered as part of it. So I'm putting my plug in. So, and I did not tell Dr. Hahn I was going to say that in advance. Just to keep it clear, again, the next three slides are purely for transparency's sake. This is the student achievement data on the 2022 MCAs by grade level. In this case, the math, the reading, and the MCA science. Okay. So that concludes part 2 of the data presentation. Dr. Hahn is looking at the summary document. That is the document I'm asking you to approve at this time.
I love that summary document that you included in here.
Thank you.
Right. Spent some time on it today.
Good. I'm glad. The TOSAs will be very appreciative of that because it's not an easy document to create.
Do we have a motion to approve, let's see, the district site continuous improvement plan as presented?
I'll make a motion.
A second.
First from Director Spear, a second from Director Boyles. Any questions for Mr. Murtha?
Yeah, I've got one. Maybe not a question, but in looking at the data, I know we've talked about this before. And if we couldn't get strategic planning going for 2 years or year and a half, if all we did was 3 things, if our strategic goal was to get our math and our reading and our science, instead of dropping off after that 4th, 5th grade, dropping down, if I'm reading the data correctly, which we've seen year after year, if our goal was nothing more than to maintain that, is that, how do we make that happen? What can we do? Can we incorporate that? If that is our strategic plan moving forward, just those 3, just 3 goals is all. Because as you were saying, Tim, that data is very, very consistent. We see that drop. And why is it? Is it because that in the later years it's more rigorous? Is it more challenging? Is it because we don't have the touch time, the minutes, et cetera? But if we only look at just those 3 things, I bet if we surveyed our parents in our community and we said, what's the number 1 thing besides finances, they're probably going to come back with education, right?
I think you partly answered your question because I think there were 2 questions there.
Remember, we can take a lot of waste out of our system, so we'll pull that into your finance piece. But
finance is Marcy. I'm programming.
But that data is there year after year.
That is there year after year. There is some interesting implications of the data from the pandemic that it's going to take some time to unpack.
Sure, I understand that,
yeah. But the idea of choosing those 3 goals, in one sense, they've always been our 3 goals. That's required by world's best workforce legislation, which is what I'm about to talk about. In order to effect a change, it's not as if we haven't been trying things over the years. Clearly, we're getting, well, remember I used to talk about popcorn pre-pandemic. We'd try something when we get a positive jump, but then we'd return back to a norm. And that was a pattern that we saw. The strategic planning, it's simple in those goals, but the complexity is finance is part of it. Staff development's part of it. Structure of day is part of it. Access to mental health is part of it. There's a very complex series of inputs that we're trying to weave together to create a very simple output, which is student achievement as measured by the MCA. culturally, there has to be then a much deeper buy-in to the idea that the MCA is an indicator of success. And I don't think we're there yet. What I've always said to you, in which I wholeheartedly believe, is the MCAs are important. They are an indicator of success, just not the only one. I would like to see in the strategic plan outcome a better, more comprehensive, concrete definition, one that I'm not the only one who, we know what teaching and learning is, because you hear it from me from all the time. Other organs of the district have a slightly different take on that, as is appropriate. We've never synthesized that into one common outcome. So I agree with you, Tom, that those should be the 3 goals, because that's the business we're in. Those are the foundations of whatever else we're going to do. I do think that complexity comes in how we align the structures and organs of the district and weave those together to do that. I think it also involves staff. I've already mentioned staff development structures. The one I did not identify was accountability structures. Are you teaching the adopted curriculum? Are you teaching it well? If yes, then let's get you to mentor others. If not, let's get you mentored by those who are. I mean, those are the threads that we need to pull to do that. And I do like it when T&L stuff is priority. So.
And what I saw in here was a real deep focus on MTSS from a lot of the buildings, and I think that's important too. I think that plays a big part in the success is having that common thread.
It is, and what that common thread starts with is common core, or not common core with the capital CC, the federal argument about the standards, the commonality of core instruction. Are we guaranteed? Are we viable? That's the first step. You have to have that in place before you start talking about the interventions, because it's all done in core. What Director Hagelin keeps pointing out correctly is there is a pattern of a lack of growth, where what's happening is the progressive increase of rigor by the benchmarks in any given standard assessed on the MCA is growing faster than a certain body of our students, who eventually seem to fall from exceeds to meets to partial meet. And that's what's generating the full fishhook, though we do have evidence that certain teams are able to turn that around, at least temporarily. That would be 8th grade math or 5th grade language arts.
Thanks, Tim.
Any other discussion? We have a first and a second. Anything else? Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now we have the World's Best Workforce Plan.
Now that since you approved that, now you can approve this. The World's Best Workforce Plans has 4 components to it, or 5 component areas to it, and they're a progressive series of goals that every district is required by law to have goals for. So this is what you've been seeing in the SIP plan for years. This is what we're required to report on, and these are those fixed targets we keep trying to get all the oars paddling to at once. These are the goals that you approved at the district level for the year in the summary document. This is just a statement that gets submitted to MDE separate from that. But what this does is shows how the district is attempting to respond to each of the areas. So from kindergarten readiness through all the way to the very end, high school graduation, college career readiness, there are goals here that touch every single portion of the district. Everyone's got a stakehold in them. We're required to post on the district website, which we've done every year, and also share with MDE what our assessment evaluating student progress plan is. So this is the battery of assessments we use to progress monitor, to define academic success, and to identify college and career readiness. We're very heavy on relying on the MCAs for this, as they're the most common outside the district created assessment for us. We do still provide the ACT. STAR Enterprise is a progress monitoring tool that's given 3 times a year for grades 2 through 10 as a way of being a predictor assessment for performance on the MCAs. And of course, the ASFAB is a career planning assessment, but it's the military vocational aptitude battery. and that is frequently used both for military MOS placement and as career interest. Okay. Again, nothing you haven't seen before. And then in section 3, this is where we have to detail out the processes. I just pulled out references to the key points. You have the approval document, the submittable document in front of you that identifies the curriculum cycle, the staff development structures and systems, the teacher development and evaluation process, which we're required to keep on file with the state of Minnesota, and our principal evaluation structure that we use. So those constitutes the core pieces of that plan. And that's it.
I need a motion to approve the World's Best Workforce Plan.
So moved.
Second.
First from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Boyles. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Director Murtha.
Much shorter than last time.
Okay, and we're on to informational. Superintendent Hahn is going to talk about the Brainerd Public Schools Foundation.
There's not much new to report. Their next meeting is this coming Wednesday to further look at their deepened plans for the big event that'll happen in February. So they released out their sponsorship letters and plans, and so the next step will be happening on Wednesday. So no changes from last report.
Okay. Equity Task Force update?
We meet again tomorrow. We decided to study student behavior supports and social emotional interventions. We have begun to gather resources and district data to look at, and this will continue over the next couple months.
Great. Business Services Report.
All right, so in your board packet is the enrollment report, and we are down 16 in grades K through 12 and up 54 in early childhood. And when I looked at the 4-year average, we were up 17 in early childhood and down 14.25 in K through 12. So we're really high in early childhood, off the charts, and in the K through 12, we're right in there. So any questions on that one?
Does that typically start out that way, or the numbers are higher in early childhood?
They continue to grow throughout the year. They just keep getting, finding kids. And then also in your packet is the financial report. Nothing to note on the general fund. In food service fund, we are down, and I looked primarily due to, we had summer school in June this last year, whereas in the prior year, it would have been in July and August, so we're paying for food in those months. And then also there were some paper products last year purchased with CARES funds and prior to the start of the school year. And then in the community service fund, we are up 2.25% from last year. However, we're starting to be more normal in community service, right? We're getting back to what we had done prior to the pandemic. So in 1920, we were at about 10%, and 1819, we were at about 11%. That's kind of our norm. In the building construction fund, we're up about 1%, nothing to note there. And then debt service is just timing of payments. And then the OPEB trust fund, it's down, and there was a credit this month that will be reversed next month, so you'll see it jump back. Any questions?
And you're in the middle of the audit.
Yeah, the audit will start this week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report.
Well, I have some exciting news that has, I think, slowly been released, but we're going to make lots of noise coming up. So we have been awarded our 9th blue ribbon, which is super exciting. So Lowell Elementary is the recipient of their 3rd blue ribbon. They are now only the 2nd school in the state of Minnesota to receive 3 blue ribbons. There's a middle school in Hastings that's had 2 blue ribbons. This makes the 9th blue ribbon for Brainerd Public Schools. And we have a period where I don't think there's any other school, I'm for sure any other school in the state of Minnesota, where at one point all elementaries were given a blue ribbon, which was in 2016. So again, when we look at achievement, there's still some significant outstanding achievement If you'd like to go on to the National Blue Ribbon Schools program and look at the data all the way back, which I spent some time doing with Carla, there are repeated notations of Brainerd Public Schools that don't exist in our region. So we have exceptional programs in education happening here, and I'm very excited for Lowell Elementary. They will be going out, and I will get to join them. Principal Johnson, along with Aaron Carlgard and myself, will be traveling to Washington, D.C. to receive this award and go through some training. Principal Sauer, who was a principal at the time when this award was given, he is taking a son to another school. So unfortunately, Principal Sauer will not be able to join us. But it's just incredible, and it's a testament to the involvement of our community, the efforts of our teaching staff, and the support that's given here in Brainerd Public Schools. So very, very excited. But I think this data is very interesting because anything that's highlighted for the last, how many, I think we went back to 1983 when this award started. Brainerd is on every single page, which is super, super fun. And we don't shout that out enough. So we're gonna shout that, and we're gonna have a huge celebration when they come back. So look forward to more celebrations there. And probably the other thing to note is we will be moving. So our next school board meeting is gonna be held at Forest View Middle School. So if you come to Washington, you're gonna see a big sign to tell you to go over to Forest View. We will be in the choir room so we can have the board meeting live streamed and so we can have some sound pieces that are all equipped in that room, which is why we picked Forest View Middle School. Karaoke after the board meeting led by a choral instructor will be fabulous. I'm sure we could put that on their list. And then we have a whole host of other meetings coming up, so.
Yeah, and they're listed here, so. Yeah. And if anyone would like to come see Superintendent Hahn speaking next Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. at Lord of Life, the Baxter Morning Kiwanis, you are invited. So.
Or this Thursday morning.
Just let me know if you're coming, because we're serving some breakfast, so. Anyway, yeah, or this Thursday morning, where are you this Thursday morning?
Sunrise Sertoma.
Okay. That's even earlier, 6:45, okay. Is there any other business to come before the board? I don't see any, so I need a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Director Blacklands and Director Spear. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for staying with us this